So if you need to pass your GED this year and you're ready to move ahead to bigger and better things in life, like college or a better job, whatever your goal happens to be, that's what we're here to do. I'm here with Michelle from Purely Persistent, and we're really happy to have Michelle on the channel today. And we did the first part on Michelle's channel, Purely Persistent. And if you missed that, I'll put a link down below to it. You can go watch that after this. So again, Michelle, thank you for coming on. Really glad to have you here. And so the first question that I have here is, how can I improve reading comprehension? So do you have any tips that you'd like to share about reading comprehension?
Yeah, the best way to actually improve your reading comprehension is to read. Okay, so the more that you read, the better you will be at reading comprehension. So pick up a book, go to your library, find a book online, lots of different ebooks that are available, but read. And I always like to say that books are like boyfriends. Okay, if you don't like a book, dump it and get a new book. Okay, but if you just practice reading and you read things that you enjoy, then the more you read, the better your reading comprehension will become.
Yeah, that's great. I agree with everything Michelle said there. The more you read, the better you're going to get. So whether it's articles or whether it's ebooks, whether it's books, whether it's the newspaper, it's all going to help. It's all going to add up. I would also add to that, when you're reading from time to time, just pause and practice putting things in your own words. Just think about a time. I'm sure we can all think of a time when maybe you went to work or you were in school and you watched a TV show the night before and your friend said, "Hey, I missed that TV show. What happened?" And so you summarize that TV show, or maybe it's a movie. You explain to somebody what happened in a movie. And I think that when you're reading, if you just get in the habit of pausing from time to time and just trying to explain what happened in your own words, I think that's a good practice to get into. I would also say that it's sometimes what some test takers do on the test is they'll just jump right in and start reading, and they'll kind of neglect the title of the piece. And if there's an image, they'll just kind of skip the image, or they won't read that caption. Just a quick tip here that can help your score. Read the title, look at the images, read the captions on the images, because oftentimes they'll stick a question in there that comes right from a caption in a photo. So don't neglect that.
Absolutely. And in several of my videos, I talk about this technique called SQ3R. And the first part is surveying. And that's just what you said there, Parker. If you can take the time to really figure out what's going on before you actually start reading. So look at the title, look at the captions, look at anything that's in bold or anything that's standing out. Then you'll be much more engaged as a reader, and you're going to want to pay more attention instead of thinking about things that are not related to the test.
Yeah. I like how you said paying attention too, because that's part of the secret too with the reading passages, really for reading and for social studies, science and math too. It's everyone, your mind's always going to wander from time to time. That's just part of being human. But if you can just train yourself to just focus longer and, try to keep your mind on what you're doing when you're reading, you are going to comprehend better. You're going to understand more, and you're hopefully going to get a better score and pass faster. So attention is really important too. It's hard sometimes with some of those passages, but yeah. Okay, so let's talk about a fun question here. So Michelle, calling or texting, which would you prefer?
Well, I love the efficiency of texting, but I think that I probably prefer calling and having a conversation. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to communicate through calling. And so texting for sure for quick and easy things, but I do enjoy a nice long conversation on the phone too.
Yeah. So I'm definitely a texter. I would go texting unless there's a specific reason for a call. I'm a texter, and that's just I guess if there's some reason why you have to be on the phone, sure, of course I'll take a call, but no, I would much prefer a text. So, all right, the next question I have here is, what are some general tips for social studies? So let me turn it over to you, Michelle. Do you have any general tips for social studies that you'd like to add?
Sure, absolutely. With social studies, you want to make sure of a couple of things. So make sure that you know the general timeline of the United States. So what was the major event that happened? Who was president? And approximately what time was it? You don't need to know specifically what the date was, but just know approximately. And then also know checks and balances. So that's how the government works, who creates laws, and who makes sure that those laws are ethical, follow the Constitution, just really sort of make sure those things have a general idea of US geography, know how to read a map. And also remember that the social studies is a reading test, okay? So make sure that you follow the reading strategies that we mentioned before and in several of our other videos, and really just do your best.
Yeah. And also, if you missed the first part of this video, I'll definitely put a link right down below in the description. We talked a little bit more about some other social studies tips in that video. So I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I do also just want to mention that I agree with everything Michelle said here. And I just want to add that, just having a good general understanding of history is going to be important if you can. Topics like the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and checks and balances, how a bill becomes a law. There's no guarantee exactly what questions you're going to get on your test, but those topics do seem to come up a lot. So it wouldn't hurt to review those topics a little bit. And just general reading comprehension skills are going to get you through social studies. And, math is very basic on the GED social studies, but mean, median, mode, and range questions are fair game. People are often surprised when they see a math question on social studies, but they do
This
come.
isn't a math
So,
test.
yeah. So, just be ready for that. And that's a good skill to have mastered for the other sections as well. Okay, so here's our next fun question. So, Michelle, if you're going to the movies to see a movie, are you going to get, if you have to choose between candy or popcorn and you can't have both, which is it, candy or popcorn?
Well, I'm usually kind of a sweet person. I've got a sweet tooth, but I would say at the movies, I would go for popcorn. I'm not one that has the extra butter. I just go for the popcorn as is.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm a candy person. If I had to pick and I couldn't have both, I'm going candy. I'm going with something sweet. I'm going Skittles. I'm going Twizzlers. Maybe some chocolate, but I'd probably go for something sweet, maybe something sour. Um, yeah. The next question that I got here is, how do I know which essay is best supported and how to spot evidence? So, Michelle, do
Okay.
you have any thoughts
Yeah,
on
I'll take that one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which side you choose. You can write a really solid essay on the first side or the second side. It honestly doesn't matter. What matters is that you can write a solid essay that supports that argument. Now, as far as finding evidence, look for quotes that they have within the passage, within the article. Look for any statistics. Those are going to be really good things to add into your essay, because the graders of the essay are looking for support for those, for your essay.
Yeah, I really like how you pointed out that you can pick whichever topic that you want to do. And if you haven't started your essay studying yet, just really basic, you're going to be reading two different passages or articles on the test. Both authors are going to be trying to convince you of something, and your job is you have to decide which author is making the strongest argument. And that's essentially, just simply put, how you're going to write the essay for the GED test. And a lot of students get hung up on trying to pick which one's best supported. So I like that you said, it doesn't matter. And one other tip that I would throw out here is, if you're having trouble, if you pick one essay and if you pick one of the articles and you're having trouble writing your essay on it, you can always switch to the other article too. And as far as evidence and things like that, you just want to look for facts and data and statistics, specific examples. I mean, things like somebody's feelings or opinions usually aren't going to be strong evidence. So I say, pick whichever one, whichever article or whichever passage has the most strong evidence that jumps out to you. And, if you're having trouble seeing which one is better, just pick the one that you think is going to be easiest to write about and to focus on.
Yeah, and I definitely wouldn't take very much time in
Mhm.
choosing which article you want to write. I mean, this is timed. And so you want to make sure that you quickly choose it and then go with it. And like Parker said, if you decide maybe just a little ways into it that you prefer the other side, then switch, but make sure that you do it, that you have enough time to
Oh
actually
yeah.
complete the essay.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like if you're halfway through the essay, you're probably just going to want to ride or die with whichever one you started with. You're probably not going to want to switch there. But yes, exactly.
Right.
So we have another fun question here. This one is favorite drink. Michelle, do you have a favorite drink?
I do. So I'm a fan of sparkling water. I know some of you probably are like, Michelle, that's the most disgusting thing, but I love it. So I'm drinking some right now, but I don't get it in the cans. I actually use, I'm gonna make a video on this in the future, not for just because people are like, Michelle, how do you make it? So I have it's like the soda streams. Have you guys seen that before where you add water to a bottle and then you carbonate it? So this is like a DIY version, and I drink so much water. So it's just water that has bubbles in it, and it's just so good.
Oh yeah, I like sparkling water too.
You do
I
too?
don't make it myself, I just buy it, but it's for sure a good way to drink more water, which is always
Mhm.
important. But I'd have to say my favorite drink, I'd probably go with lemonade. Nice warm summer day, some lemonade never hurts.
Be a little more specific, like what lemonade?
Lemonade, I would say, we could go pink lemonade, any kind of lemonade. We could do hand squeezed lemonade. We could do, lemonade at like a lemonade stand down the street or something like that. Just any kind of lemonade, really. Next, I have what are some strategies and tips for word problems? So, Michelle, do you have any strategies or tips for word problems that you'd like to share?
Yeah, for sure. So the majority of your math test will be word problems.
Mhm.
And I actually like word problems because they give a meaning to a problem. It's not going to be just, oh, here's a problem that I'm reading, or here's a math problem and it has no meaning. Word problems give meaning to math problems. And so I actually prefer word problems over just a straight math problem. My tip though is to write down everything that you're given. Sometimes you'll be given things that you're not going to use. And if you write down what you're given, then you will remember to use everything that you need.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And so, one tip I have for word problems is always take deep breaths and don't be afraid to reread. No, you don't want to just get hung up on spending too much time on one question and just keep rereading it over and over and over and over again. And while that time's ticking down, that's probably not going to be a winning strategy. But, taking some time to reread and, it's going to help you out. Take deep breaths, even read a question twice or more than that if you need to. Another strategy that I teach on my channel for word problems is a 5-step method. This isn't a method I came up with, but I use the word FIOS sometimes to help people remember this. The F just stands for find. What do you have to find? And sometimes you see all these words in the word problems, and it's easy to kind of come away from it, and your brain is scrambled because it's so much information. So just zooming in on what you have to find is a good strategy. So that's the F in FIOS. The I stands for information or info. Just take stock of what info did they give you in the question. Kind of like Michelle said, you can make a note of it if you want, and also think about what information do I need that I was not given. And then the O stands for operation. So think about what operation do you need to do? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. And there's sometimes keywords in the questions that can help you with this. Things like for addition, add, sum, altogether, increase. A couple for multiplication would be things like product, times, twice, or by. And for division, things like each, quotient, average, or out of. I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys right now, but I don't want people to get in the habit of thinking keywords are like a cheat code to get through the word problems, because you still have to use critical thinking skills and just common sense. But sometimes just focusing in on keywords can help give you a clue as to what you have to do. So that's the F, the I, and the O, and the S stands for solve the question and ask if your answer makes sense. Because sometimes, you might get an answer that is, you can look at it and you can just tell, well, this is way off just by kind of common sense. So, zero in on what you have to find, solve the question, and ask if your answer makes sense.
I love it.
Thank you. All right, Michelle, I've got another question for you. What is the weirdest snack you like to eat?
Okay. So I really like they're called sprats. It's a it's a kind of like a sardine, except it's a smoked fish. And they're usually from like Ukraine, Latvia, that sort of thing. And so a smoked fish on a cracker is, I mean, it's not something I eat very often, but it's definitely a strange snack that I sometimes like to eat.
Interesting. I would say just, dry cereal in a bowl or just peanut butter. Two of my favorite.
Like a scoop of peanut butter?
Yeah, you can only really take one scoop of peanut butter, I guess, but
And
but
what kind of dry cereal?
I would say whatever we've got. Fruit Loops are good, Cheerios, shredded wheat too is always good. That's one of my favorite cereals. So okay, so let's see here. So Michelle, this question, I'm going to ask this to you because I do mainly GED stuff on my channel. I know that there's definitely a lot of overlap between the HiSET and the GED, but I know that you are more familiar and you teach HiSET stuff. So what do you have any general tips for the HiSET reading?
Yes. So the HiSET reading only has the reading. It doesn't have the writing combined with it. So GED has RLA, Reading Language Arts. So the reading and the writing are together. HiSET is just separated. So the reading is all alone. And I would say it goes with some of the strategies we've already talked about. Make sure that you're paying attention to what you're reading, that you're looking for the main idea, looking at individual words if you have to use context clues, that sort of thing to get it. But I also highly recommend, it's called the SQ3R technique. I go through it in several of my reading videos, but if you can survey, figure out what's going on, take a brief look at the questions, or at least a couple of the questions, and then you can even come up with a few questions of your own and then read so that you're paying attention to what you're reading. And when you do this technique, only take like 20-30 seconds to do a quick survey and to look at the questions. Don't take very much time. The whole purpose is so that you're an engaged and focused reader. And all of these techniques and tips go for the GED reading portion as well.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Michelle. And I'm going to put you on the spot again here. So the next question I have for you is, what is one weird fact or tidbit that you still remember from school?
Okay, so I can list off all of the prepositions in alphabetical order.
That's good.
I'll give you a teaser, okay? I feel like I need to make like a YouTube short on this. I think I did actually. Aboard, about, above, across, after, against, along, among, around, at, before, behind, below, beneath, beside, extreme, beyond, but, by, down, during, except for, from, and inside, to, like, near, next, on and on and on.
That's good.
Yeah, seventh grade.
There you
And
go.
my language teacher had us practice every day, and it's still in my head. And I talk with
That's good.
one of my friends that I grew up with, and sometimes I'm like, "Do you remember him?" And she's like, "Yes, she does." So, some of those things, some of those silly mnemonic devices that we remembered or that we learned in school might still be in your brain.
Oh yeah, that's good. So to be honest, I don't remember that much stuff from school. I don't think that I learned a whole lot, especially that I use in real life. But where I went to high school, they had a banner up and it said, "The more you learn, the more you earn." And so that's definitely a really important strategy for life. And sometimes, when we're in high school or college, there's a lot of things that you're forced to learn that you just kind of have to get through just to get the degree. But in real life, education is really the key, to just continuously keep educating yourself, because there really is truth to that. The more you learn, the more you earn. And I know I'm preaching to the choir right now, because I know obviously, Michelle, you agree with that. And I know everyone watching this right now is here to learn and is here to move ahead. But it's good advice.
I love that.
Oh yeah.
Well, and I think that there's the term lifelong learner. And
Oh
if
yeah.
you can continually figure out something to learn and, try and learn something new every day, then you're just going to enrich your life so much more.
Oh yeah. Okay. So the next question here that was submitted was, how can I remember and understand information for math and science? So Michelle, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, for science, you definitely want to make sure that you understand the scientific method. Okay,
Oh yeah.
so that's looking at the hypothesis and is what is the experiment, what are the conclusions, that sort of thing. And there will be specific things on the science test and on the social studies test that you're either going to know or you're not going to know. Okay, and it's not like you can read and figure it out. And so those, just do your best educated guess. If you can eliminate some, I definitely would. As far as the math, I would, GED and HiSET have a few different things that you need to memorize. For example, if you're taking the HiSET test, you need to memorize the quadratic equation, whereas if you're taking the GED test, you don't. And so, like for the quadratic equation, if you put it to the tune of pop goes the weasel, you can remember it. So x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There's some little tricks that you can remember. And Parker and I both have in our videos, we have these tricks just sprinkled throughout the videos. So definitely make sure that you watch our videos and learn the tricks that we have for you. I mean, we both have well over 100 videos on our channels.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so as far as just remembering and understanding information, I think I've talked about this either earlier in this video or maybe it was in part 1. I can't remember now. But just trying to explain things in your own words is a really good learning technique. And this can help too. If there's a math question that you're stuck on, maybe you have a textbook, you read the lesson and you're doing a practice problem and you're stuck on it. Sometimes just trying to explain it out loud in your own words, or you can do it on a pen and paper too. Maybe if you're at the library and you don't want to talk out loud, but just trying to explain how to do something in your own words and then seeing where all of a sudden it breaks down. You're explaining something and all of a sudden you freeze because you don't know how to keep explaining it. That part of the problem that you get stuck on, sometimes that is like a clue as to what you need to go back and fill in those gaps for. So it's all about trying to explain something in your own words because you're going to figure out what you don't know. And then you can go back to the reading or go back to our YouTube videos and rewatch part of the lesson. And then you come back and you try to explain it again, and now you can do it. And so you've learned something. So that's always a good technique to use. I would say too, take breaks and space your studying out a little bit too. If you say you're trying to learn how to do slope, for example, and you're just really not getting it, try. And then once you start getting frustrated, take a break from it, go out for a walk or study something else, study a different topic. Maybe come back the next day and work on slope again. And probably what'll happen is you'll get a little bit further with it. And you might say, I'm still not getting this. So take a break, work on something else, come back. And maybe on that third try to understand it, it'll click. I mean, for math and science can be hard. So don't expect to get everything on your first try. It can take multiple attempts, especially for some of the harder stuff. So yeah, just space your studying out and lots of practice, lots of getting stuck and figuring out how to get yourself unstuck. That's really the key in my opinion.
Absolutely. And along with that, with the slope example, so let's say you finally understand slope. So you want to make sure that you review it the next day and then the next week so that you don't forget everything that you've learned. So when you learn something new, just review it. And reviewing occasionally will help it stay in your head so that, okay, I learned slope, and then next month you have the test coming up and you forget how to do the slope because you haven't reviewed it. So definitely make sure that you're taking time to review.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And an easy way to do that, in my opinion, would be to just take notes when you're studying, because then you're going to have things in your own handwriting. I don't have a textbook, but in my videos, sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a textbook that's like this big, and I'll take a notebook that's like this big, and I'll put them side by side. So people can see that, when you're going back to review, going through a textbook that's this thick is probably going to take you longer than going back through your notebook that's this thick. So definitely take notes as you study. I mean, that can help you learn. And, it can save you time too. Like Michelle was saying, it's really important to space out your studying. And if you learn something, review it the next day, maybe a couple days later. And, it can be, you go back and redo some practice problems, or it can just be as simple as you just review your notes quickly, just read through them quickly and then keep going. Everyone's different, whatever it's going to take to help you remember the information. Perfect. So Michelle, I have another question for you. Have you ever met a celebrity, and which celebrity would you like to meet?
Yes, I met Bill Pullman. He was in the movie, I think, in Independence Day.
Okay.
And While You Were Sleeping, I think that's like maybe from the 90s or something like that. Do you know who that is?
No, I don't.
Yeah, so
That's cool though.
My brother's friend's uncle
Okay.
is married to him or something like, or like his brother or something like that. I don't know. There's some connection on how my brother's friend is relatives with Bill Pullman, and I met him through that. And what I like is there a celebrity that I would like to meet? I guess I haven't really thought about that too much. Probably Parker from Test Prep Champs.
Michelle, I'm flattered.
Yes, I
Wow.
just kidding, Parker.
Well, we
Just
met
kidding.
virtually, so that's we're halfway there.
We have met virtually, right? I I guess I'm kind of interested in meeting some people whose podcast I listen to. I guess I just read a book called Believe It by Jamie Kern Lima, and I think I would like to meet her.
Awesome. Awesome. So my celebrity that I met was Bam Margera, who is a professional skateboarder, or was. I'm not sure if he still is. I was a little kid and I was in Philadelphia in Pennsylvania during the skateboarding X Games, and Bam Margera happened to be walking by. Someone might, people might remember the show Viva La Bam. It was like skateboarding and all kinds of pranks and stunts like that on TV. It was an older show, but yeah, I got Bam's autograph. I was a little kid, and I probably lost it by now, but that's the that's the biggest celebrity that I've ever met. Which celebrity would you like to meet? Well, besides Michelle, I'd probably say Mike Tomlin, who's the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Really, I'm a big Steelers fan. Really, anybody on the Steelers, I'd like to meet. Got my coffee mug right here. Coincidentally, I was probably half my mugs have something to do with either the Steelers or the Penguins or another Pittsburgh team. So, but yeah, that's who I'd want to meet.
So this video's champion shoutout goes to a successful GED test taker who came from Africa to America and persevered for 4 long years before finally getting the GED, and is now applying to college. And the test taker wants everyone out there to know, never give up and keep studying hard.
The next question that I have here is, what are some tips for functions?
I think that being able to recognize right away, is this a function or is this not a function? Okay, so the way you can tell if it's a function or if it's not a function, I mean, if it's on a graph, is if it doesn't cross the x-axis more than once. And so if it does, then that means it is not a function.
Yeah, so this is without having a whiteboard or something to draw out, it's kind of hard. It is hard to kind of answer this question, but for a function here, I like to, when I teach this, I think of, I describe this imaginary soda machine that I call the function soda machine. And so imagine you put $1 in and you get a Sprite, for example. You put in $2, maybe you get a vitamin water. But every single time you put in $1, you're only ever going to get a Sprite. You can't put in $1 and get a vitamin water. And so in a function, it's going to have an input and it's going to have an output. And so the input would be like you're putting that dollar in and you're always going to get that Sprite. All right. So each input is going to have one output. You can't put $1 in and get out a vitamin water. If you put $2 in, you're always going to get a vitamin water. You can't put $2 in and get a Sprite. So off the top of my head here, that would be my best tip for functions, just kind of understanding that, for each input, there's going to be one output. You're not going to have, for example, put a 2 into the function and get a 10 and a 9 and a 17. You're only going to get one output. And so that's off the top of my head. That's hopefully that answers the question, or at least gives some guidance as far as functions. Anything else?
Another tip I have is, as you're studying, sometimes you'll see an equation that's maybe like y equals mx plus b or something like that. That's a slope. Sometimes you also see f of x. Yep. And so f of x, when they're talking about that, is also just meaning y. Okay, so that's something that sometimes people get a little bit tripped up on.
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes they'll say, give you f of x equals, and then they'll give you an equation. They'll say, give you an equation, and they'll say, when x equals 3. And all you want to do for something like that is you just replace every x in the equation with a 3. just do the math, maybe put it in your calculator. And again, I wish we could had a whiteboard or something. It'd be easier. It's kind of hard to describe breakdown functions without being able to draw stuff out here. But hopefully that's some tips at least to get you started in the right direction with functions. Unless there's anything else you wanted to.
Well, again, definitely make sure that you check out some of our math videos on Parker's channel and on my channel. We have a lot of math videos that will definitely help you with functions and other math concepts.
Oh, for sure. This is a common question I get about the GED very often. And the question is, should I take tests for all 4 subjects on the same day, or should I space them out? I just wondered if you had any insight into that.
I would say space them out. I mean, if you have to take them all in one day, then do it. But I mean, this is not a marathon. Okay. If you can space them out, then you'll be able to focus on one and then take it, and focus on another one and take it, or maybe focus on a couple at a time and then take it. I would advise against taking all tests in one day. I think that there's a lot of burnout. You might do really well during your first or second test, but then come your later tests, you are kind of exhausted because the tests are long and they're draining on your brain, on your body. And so I would space it out if you can.
Oh yeah. Yep, I agree with that. And I've heard from people that have done it, but I wouldn't recommend it for most people. I just think it's too much to do in one day. It can be done for sure, but I wouldn't recommend it. And so I have another question here, Michelle, and then we'll go to a fun one. Another common question I get is, how long does it take to pass all 4 GED subjects? In other words, how long does it take to get the GED done? I know that's kind of a hard question to answer, but I wondered if you had any insights into that.
Well, I think it really depends upon you. So you as in not Parker, but you as in the person watching this. How motivated are you to get this done? If you have a pressing timeline, then you might be a little bit more motivated. If your grandma or your probation officer is telling you to get this, but you don't really see the value, probably not going to get it in a very long time, right? It's probably, you might not get it for a couple of years because you don't really want it. And then it's also really hard to tell, because what is your personal situation? When did you drop out of high school, or did you drop out of middle school, right? And how long has it been? So let's say I'm working with a student who is she's, I think, in her 40s, and she grew up in El Salvador and she quit school in 6th grade. Okay, so she missed 6 years worth of education. And it has been like 20 plus years since she's been in school. So it's going to take her a lot longer than, let's say, somebody that is 18 that dropped out of their senior year of high school, that has a lot of the information fresh in their mind and they learned a lot of information. So I think it really just is so subjective. It just depends upon where you're at in your life.
Oh yeah. And, I've seen people take it in 2 years. I've seen people do it in a week or two. Now, that's not common. Most people don't do that, but I have seen that. And I would say 3 to 6 months is like a reasonable goal for a lot of people if you're able to study consistently. If you're motivated and, you're able to study consistently, because let's be honest, life, things are going to come up, and sometimes it's hard to keep a consistent study schedule. But if you can put the work in consistently, you can work hard, you can work smart, and you're motivated to get it done. I think 3 to 6 months is pretty reasonable for most people. Now, again, everybody's different. There's nothing wrong with taking longer, but I think that's pretty reasonable. What would you think? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And really just dig deep in and figure out, why is this important for you right now? Oh, yeah. And if you have a solid answer, then you'll be able to get through this a lot faster.
Yep, I agree. And another factor too is, how much time you have available to study, because if you're working multiple jobs and you've got kids and you've just got a lot of stuff going on in your life, it's okay to go slow. It's okay to take a year or take however long you need. So, someone who has a lot of time available to study, is probably going to get done faster than someone who is just in a situation for whatever reason where they don't have as much time to study. So that's something you can take into consideration too. When I throw that 3 to 6 month thing out there, that's just kind of a general, in my opinion, and it's just kind of a general. I think that's generally realistic, but everyone's situation is different. And if you're just have a lot going on in your life right now, it's perfectly okay to take longer.
And I would recommend that you study maybe 12 to 15 hours per week.
Oh
If
yeah,
you can commit to that, then you'll be able to make it through much faster.
yeah. Oh, for sure. Okay, Michelle. So if you were today to go out and play the lottery and win, what would you do first?
Oh, I think I would buy a ticket around the world and just visit as many places within the United States and around the world that I can. And then just depending upon how much it's worth, do some other things. I definitely want to donate a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What
So
would you do?
besides jump up and down, the first thing that I would do is take an awesome vacation, do something fun for yourself, and make sure you got the
Yeah.
bills paid. And then after that, we'll try to give some of that out.
All right. Well, Parker, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and answer these questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Michelle. We really appreciate having you. If you recognize Michelle, let us know down below in the comments, and we really appreciate you watching this. And if you missed the first video, now would be a good time to watch it if you want to. I'll put a link to that down below.